Hello friends, it's Lisa, and today I'm going to be doing a tag video. I am doing the slow readers tag, which was created by my friend Mikaila, who I'll have her channel linked below. And this is the first tag video that I've done in a while. I think the last tag video I did was the folklore book tag. I might be wrong, but that was last summer, so it's been a while, so I'm excited to do this one. But also for this video, I am wearing purple. I mean, it's more maroon, but I don't really own purple, so this was what I could do with what I had. But I'm wearing purple because Amanda from Ginger Snapped Reads reached out to me and a lot of other booktubers to wear purple on the same upload day to kind of show support for Lupus Awareness Month. May is Lupus Awareness Month, so Amanda thought it would be cool if we all uploaded on the same day wearing purple to show our support and to help spread awareness. So thank you to Amanda for reaching out and asking if I wanted to be involved. I will also have some resources in the description about lupus and Lupus Awareness Month for you guys to check out and to learn more about it. And there's a bunch of other people who have participated in this, and I think it's really great to spread awareness about this type of thing. So yeah, I'll have that all in the description for you guys to check out, but now we can just get into the tag. So the first question is, what is your Goodreads goal for the year? So this year I decided to make my Goodreads goal 60 books. I read 70 books last year, and my goal I think for last year was 50 books, so I thought that that was a good in the middle and probably something where I would have to, try and reach it, but it wouldn't be too unattainable. Like, it definitely is a challenge, but it's not so challenging that I'm just constantly stressed about getting my Goodreads goal done, because I'm actually like halfway through already. I think I've read like 31 books, so I probably will complete my goal because we're not even quite halfway through the year yet, and I'm already a little over halfway through my goal, so I think I can do it. Fingers crossed. The next question is, how many books do you read a month on average? So I did kind of my average for the first 4 months of this year so far, and it came out to an average of 7, which I think makes sense because I think like the lowest amount of books that I normally read is like 5-ish per month, and then there's obviously some months where I read like 10-ish. Those are typically like readathon months. So yeah, I definitely feel like even just in general, not just within the first 4 months of this year, 7 is a pretty good number for me because I feel like sometimes I don't read a lot, sometimes I read a lot. So 7 is definitely a good average, I think. The next question is, how many days does it typically take you to read a book? And for this, I didn't actually do math, I'm just kind of guessing. I would say like 5-ish, because there definitely are books where I read pretty quickly and I read in like 1 to 3 days, and then there's some books that take me like a week, sometimes longer, so I feel like 5 to like 6 days is probably the average. It also totally depends on the book and like the genre and everything, but I would say 5 days is like probably the average amount of time it takes me to read a book. Alright, it just got very dark in here, so hopefully the lighting is still okay. But anyway, the next question is, are you always reading or do you take breaks in between? And I definitely feel like this answer has kind of changed since starting my YouTube channel. I feel like before I started my YouTube channel and I was just kind of reading at my own pace, not for like any videos or anything, I would take breaks in between. If I was reading like a series, I wouldn't take that big of a break in between books, but in between like the end of series or just like standalone books, I would take long breaks in between. Now I don't really feel like I take breaks in between reading. I sometimes just kind of go into the next book. But I feel like as of recently, I've been trying to just kind of read at my own pace and not try and read for a certain amount of books or a certain amount of time because of my YouTube channel. I'm just trying to read because I feel like it. So I'm working on it. I feel like, though, for the most part, I don't really take that big of breaks in between. I think if anything, like I'll start a book and then I won't read it for like 5 days and then I'll go back to it. So I take breaks while I'm in the middle of books, not necessarily in between. So the next question is, what book took you particularly long to read? So I have a few answers for this. The first one I wanted to talk about was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This one took me like a month and a half to read, which I think was the longest a book has taken me to read since starting my YouTube channel, so it's definitely more fresh in my head and it took me quite a while. But it also took me a while to read Rule of Wolves, which is the sequel. I think it took me like a few weeks to read this, and let's just not even talk about this duology, we're just gonna move on. But both of those took me quite a bit. It also took me quite a while to read It by Stephen King. I think it took me like 3 weeks to read that book, which when you think about how big that book is, that's like kind of impressive, but it did take me quite a while, definitely a lot longer than most books take me to read. And that was the first Stephen King that I had ever read, which I know most people probably wouldn't recommend starting with it, but I only wanted to read it because part 2 of the new movie was coming out and I wanted to read it before that came out, and I saw that, so that's why I read it, but it took me 3 weeks. The next question is, do big books intimidate you because you know you'll be spending a long time with them? And then also it says to show a big book you're intimidated by. So I feel like I will get intimidated by bigger books, but I feel like sometimes it's more like the content of books that I get intimidated by. If I know it's going to be like a fantasy that's going to take a lot of like brain power for me to understand, that intimidates me more than how many pages there are. Or if it's going to be like a hard-hitting kind of book, one that's going to be difficult to read for that reason, that is definitely more intimidating for me to read than bigger books. Like, I don't immediately get intimidated by bigger books, but I do have one that is quite large that I'm very scared to read. And that is Priory of the Orange Tree. This is quite chunky. I think it's like 800 or something pages, so it's big, but it's not like the biggest book I've ever read. But I think just because it's a fantasy, it's a high fantasy, I've seen people say that they've like taken notes while reading this book, and just there's a lot to kind of understand about this book. I think that's why I'm mostly intimidated. Plus it is a big book, so that does play a part. But yeah, I would say like bigger books will intimidate me, but it's more about like the content and what's going to be happening in the book that will intimidate me, if that makes sense. The next question is, which book have you actually read in one day or super quickly? So I've read a few books, a decent amount of books, pretty quickly or in one day. I feel like a lot of like graphic novels I've read in one day, which feels like kind of a cheat answer, but like Heartstopper, Volume 1, any of like Brian K. Vaughan's graphic novels that I've read, so like the Saga series and like the Paper Girls series. Also The Prince and the Dressmaker I read really quickly as well. But other than graphic novels, I have read some like just novels very quickly or in one day. So one book that I read recently in the span of one day was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I read this for a 24-hour readathon that me, Darian, and Casey did, so I did read this in 24 hours. I also didn't grab some of the books that I wanted to talk about, but The Poet X and Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I can't remember if I read Clap When You Land in one day, but I read it like really quickly, and I think I read The Poet X in one day. But yeah, because those books are in verse, I think that went a bit quicker for that reason. I also read, I think, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness in one day, mostly just because that book is so sad that I was just like, okay, I just want it to be done. I just want it to be over as fast as possible. It is a good book. I didn't want to prolong the sadness. I've also read both of Nicola Yoon's books really quickly. So Everything I did read in one day. I read it basically in one sitting. I only moved to like go to the bathroom and like eat food. I basically sat on my couch all day and read that book and finished it. And I think The Sun Is Also a Star, I don't know if I read in one day, but I read it in like 2 or 3 days. Like I read it really quickly, and I really love that book, so definitely would recommend that one. So yeah, there's been a lot of books that I've read pretty quickly or in 24 hours, especially since starting YouTube and 24-hour readathons being a thing. So the next question is, what book genre takes you the longest to read? And even though I would say this is the genre I read the most from, I think fantasy takes me the longest. I think because when I read, I'm definitely like visualizing everything in my head as I read, and with fantasy, there's kind of a whole new world you have to learn on top of me visualizing everything, and it's not, it's set in a world that's different from our own a lot of the time, so it's not just as easy for me to picture, whereas like a contemporary book, I know kind of the setting because it's set in our world, so I definitely think fantasy takes me a bit longer to read for like visualizing things and just like grasping the world and everything. But it is very strange that that's the genre that I read the most of, but it definitely takes me the longest to read. The next question is a book you regret reading because you spent so much time with it for so little payoff. We're gonna mention these again, these ones. This one, okay, King of Scars, it took me a month and a half, like I said, but I didn't hate this book. Like, I gave it like a 3.5 stars, so I didn't like dislike it. I liked it a lot more than Rule of Wolves. Rule of Wolves didn't take me as long as this book, but I found this very, like, not very rewarding once I finished it, and like, this is the 7th book in the Grishaverse that I have read, so even though they're not technically a part of like one series, it is a book set in the same world, and it's like I've invested so much time into these characters and into this world for this. So that was not great. I also have another book which didn't take me that long, it just felt like it took me forever, and that is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I think it took me like a week to read this book, but it felt like years. And I was pretty disappointed with this book. I'm not like, I read The Hunger Games for the first time last year, so I'm definitely not like a Hunger Games like super fan, so maybe that's why I didn't love it that much, but I got to the end and was just like, that's how this is ending. Okay, I just felt like it really wasn't worth it, but I know some people love this, I know some people hate it. I just feel confused and feel like it maybe wasn't worth my time, but it only took me a week to read. It just felt like it took years. Like, it literally felt like it took me so long to read this, but if you want to hear my thoughts, I did do a vlog for it. And then the final question is to recommend fellow slow readers a book. So I think it would be very easy for me to recommend some graphic novels just because those are very easy and very quick for people to read. I mean, if you do want some graphic novel recommendations, the Heartstopper graphic novels are cute. I've only read volume 1, but I mean, I'm assuming all the rest of them are also cute. Also, The Prince and the Dressmaker is really cute, The Tea Dragon Society, and if you want something a bit more like sci-fi, fantasy, a bit more weird and mature, the Paper Girls series as well as the Saga series by Brian K. Vaughan are also really good and just so strange but so interesting, so you definitely would get through those quickly. And then for just some novels as well, I do have Truly Devious and A Good Girl's Guide to Murder to recommend. These are both like YA thriller mystery novels, so they're very easy to read because you just kind of get sucked in and wanting to know what's going to happen. I read both of these actually for 24-hour readathons, so if you're looking for fast-paced books to read for 24-hour readathons, there you go. These are also both series, so if you love series and want to get even more invested and want to kind of just marathon series, I think that these would be a good one to do that with. I also wanted to recommend some books in some other genres as well because I feel like graphic novels, they're very short, they're very quick to read just in general, and I feel like thrillers are always recommended for fast-paced books. So I wanted to recommend some in some different genres. So I would also say romance is a good genre to read if you want to read something a bit more fast-paced and want to read something that you might get through quickly because they're just so like fun and lighthearted for the most part, so it's a lot easier to get through them. So I would recommend Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I know everyone loves the Brown Sisters trilogy. I need to read the other two, but it's for a good reason. They're really good. I also read another book by Talia Hibbert. It's one of her backlisted titles called The Princess Trap, and that one took me like less than 2 days to read, so I would also recommend that one, but I think just romance in general is a good genre to read if you want to get through some books quickly because they're just so like fun and just a great time. I also wanted to recommend a fantasy and a sci-fi as well, so for the like sci-fi recommendation, I'd recommend Warcross by Marie Lu. I feel like this would be very quick to read. In this book, there is this thing called Warcross, and it's basically like this virtual reality game, and there's like a tournament that happens every year and it's like a big deal, and there's kind of this mystery kind of going on throughout this book that our main character is trying to solve, where there's someone that has been like hacking into the game and messing with it, so she's trying to figure out what is happening and who that is. So not only is there like that mystery of who's hacking into the game, but there is that competition aspect and you're curious about who's going to win and everything. So I would recommend this for like a sci-fi fast-paced recommendation. And of course, it wouldn't be a video where I'm recommending books if I wasn't going to recommend An Ember in the Ashes. I do think if you like fantasy and you haven't read this series, I feel like you would really enjoy it and be able to just like fly through probably the whole series, but especially this first book because things start going down, things are happening like 5 pages in, and it doesn't really stop. I feel like there's constant action. There's also a competition element in this book as well. Can you tell what types of tropes I like to read about? But yeah, if you like fantasy, I feel like you would read this pretty quickly because it's just such an immersive world and the characters are great and it's just so easy to just like need to know what's going to happen next. So I would also recommend this. But yeah, those are all of my recommendations for slow readers, my fellow slow readers, and that is the final question for this tag. So thank you to Mikaila for not only creating this tag but tagging me to do it, and also thank you to Amanda for reaching out and asking me to be a part of wearing a purple shirt to spread awareness for Lupus Awareness Month. Again, gonna have things in the description for you guys to check out about that as well. And with a tag video comes tagging people, so I'm just gonna tag any of the YouTubers who were involved in wearing a purple t-shirt for raising awareness for Lupus Awareness Month. If any of you are watching this and you want to do this tag, you can say that I tagged you. Also, if you're just watching this and you want to do this tag, feel free. But I think that that is going to complete this video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.